take 2 of lesson 5, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. All right, we're going to just do a quick recap of the things that we've learned in the first 4 lessons, okay? First thing is the basics. So there's 5 basics. We learned who do you listen to? Teachability index, the training balance scale, the 4 steps of learning leading to unconscious competence. And 5 is the most important, is master the basics. Okay, so who do you listen to? Well, ultimately, you're going to listen to yourself because you're going to use your gut feeling and discern what you're reading, listening to, who you're talking to, that sort of thing. Now, you also listen to people who have had success in whatever it is that we're talking about. Don't listen to just the teacher. If the teacher is the type of teacher that, he can't do, so he teaches, that's not the kind of teacher you want, all right? That's the first basic. Who do you listen to? And number 2 is teachability index. That has 2 factors. That is your willingness to learn. What are you willing to give up to learn this? And your willingness to accept change. And you're going to have to change in order to change your life. All right, and then the number 3 is training balance scale. So the training balance scale is kind of a misnomer because there's no balance at all, okay? You're going to put all of your effort, almost all, into the thinking side of the training balance scale. The action side will come automatically if you focus on the thinking side. So you're going to put most of your efforts into thinking and strategizing what you're going to do, and then the action will come. All right, the 4th one is the 4 steps of learning. So when you first start to learn something, you don't know what you don't know. So you are unconsciously incompetent. Then you go into conscious incompetence, meaning you know that you don't know, and you're watching other people who could do it, but you can't do it. Number 3 is when you learn how to do it. Someone teaches you how to tie your shoelace, but you have to think about it. You go, oh boy, I think I have to cross my shoelaces, and then I put this one and tie it into that one. Okay, then I make a loop, and then I wrap this around the loop, and then I pull it through, and oh, I did it. So you are competent, but you have to think about it. You're consciously competent. And then through repetition, perfect practice makes perfect. You become unconscious competent. So you are doing something perfectly, but you don't even have to think about it. It's like driving home from work and you've worked there for 30 years. You know the way. You don't have to think about it. You go on autopilot. That's the way you want to become when it comes to success. You want to be on autopilot. All right, and the 5th one is master the basics. The most important thing is to focus on the first 4 basics because the rest will come. All right, and then we learned the system. And the system is that wonderful symbol that looks like the Eye of Providence on the $1 bill. And it is a triangle. So the 3 sides of the triangle are books, audios, events. And then there's like a ray of sunshine coming out of the middle of the triangle. And there's rays emanating. Those are like being surrounded by your friends, peers, like-minded people that you like to spend time with on a daily basis. And then it is all on a base of recognition. Recognize people. And when they recognize you, how does that feel? It feels pretty good. So just learn about how that makes you feel, and then you do that for others. You have the power to make other people feel fantastic about themselves. And the more you do that, the more people will want to hang around you. And the more money you will make because you will have more friends, you'll have more influence, you'll have more opportunities. And the The first one is books in the system. Leaders are always readers. So we're going to read, read, read. But you can't read crap. So don't read lies. Don't read fake books. Read books with real examples of successful people really doing things. And there's a book list of 15 books that we are to read. And we are to do that every day. Even if you spend 5-10 minutes every day reading, that's enough. Audios. Audios is basically the same thing, except in a voice saying this to you instead of reading the words. So you're going to listen to these audios. I gave you audios by Kevin Trudeau, and I'm giving you some more audios today to listen to from Earl Nightingale. And those audios are very important to do every day. Even if you do it 10 minutes, that's perfectly fine. But it gets your mind focused on success. And events is when you go out of your comfort zone. You might fly to a different country. You're going to go to a different place. You won't spend the night at your own home. You're going to be in a different bed, in a different situation. You might have to rent a car. You might get lost because you don't know where you're going. And that's all part of the experience. Events break you away from that rut of your daily grind. It is also most likely where you're going to meet your friends, your peers that are part of that, that system symbol. And it's probably where you're going to get recognition as well and get a chance to give recognition. So the system is something that we use. It is the system for success. All right. So for today, we're going to be quick, I think, because I'm with my neighbor Sheila, and we're drinking wine and whiskey, and we're having a great time.
And wild men.
There we go. Drink some whiskey. All right, so for lesson 5, we're going to talk about Napoleon Hill. We talked about Napoleon Hill earlier because the richest man in the world at the time was Andrew Carnegie. This was quite a while ago. Napoleon Hill was his apprentice, in effect, because he wasn't actually part of the societies. He was not initiated. But Andrew Carnegie said, to hell with the rules, I'm just going to apprentice Napoleon Hill. And he gave him a 20-year commission. He said, I want you to watch what I do. I'm going to give you other people to go watch, and you're going to watch them. And he got the opportunity to watch Henry Ford and other people, J.P. Morgan. And he watched those people do things at unconscious competence level. And he watched that for 20 years. And he wrote a book. Now, and that's Bella, by the way. Bella's saying hi. All right, so Napoleon Hill says, whatever the mind can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve. Remember, he's learning this from the richest man in the world at the time. Andrew Carnegie was a steel tycoon. So let's think about that. Whatever the mind can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve. Wow. Now, I included in, what is that called? Fried Snobs. Okay. I included in Fried Snobs a clip from Star Wars, but I'm going to describe it because I'm not sure if we're allowed to show it, but you are more than welcome to review that clip. But the Star Wars clip goes like this. Luke Skywalker crashes his craft into a swamp, and Yoda is there with him, coaching him on using the Force. And he says, well, use the Force and lift it out. And Luke Skywalker says, okay, I'll try. And Yoda says, no, do or do not. There is no try. Very important. There is no try. Now, of course, there is trying. There's a difference between trying and actually doing or thinking about doing. But for the purposes of what we are going to do, You don't set out to try anything. You set out to do. You are going to reach your goal. We went over this in lesson 1, where it is a mathematical certainty if you stick with it. It is a mathematical certainty that you will reach your goal. So make sure it's a worthwhile goal. Now, Luke Skywalker goes on. He tries to lift the craft out of the swamp, and of course he fails. Well, he gets chastised by Yoda, and then Yoda uses the Force to lift it out. And Luke looks at him and says, "I don't believe it." And Yoda chagrins and says, "That is why you fail. You have to believe that you can do it for you to achieve. So make your goal believable. Make sure you can believe in your goal." Now, there's a medical term for believing that you are cured, even when you're not taking any medicine. Do you know what that medical term is?
Well, and if I had to, no, I don't.
That is called the placebo effect. So people will take sugar pills, which that does nothing. You're just taking a tiny little amount of sugar. That's not going to change anything. They're taking sugar pills, but they believe that it's going to cure them. And it has been shown that that works sometimes 40% of the time. It will cure them of their ailment. Now, how does that work? I mean, a rational person, how would they explain that?
Sorry, this is where you expect me to talk. Sorry about that. Just sheer will, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one way of saying it. I mean, it's sheer will. It's the power of the mind. It is you creating the reality with the mind, or as we talked about in another class, not really your brain, but something beyond your brain, because you are more than the sum of your parts. You are more than 2 legs, 2 arms, a torso, and a head. You are something else. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking for a story that I'm about to read. And there's a book called Be a Genie. And it is written by Maureen St. Germain. So I'm going to be reading out of that book.
Damn it, I own that book, but I gave it to the thrift store when I moved.
Are you a fan of Maureen St. Germain?
I had all her books at one point and read, I would say, 70% of them.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So do you have a Merkaba that's active?
I read it. I never got that far. No. She was on Coast to Coast AM years ago, and I was interested in what she was saying.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's great. And this book explains the Mind movie really well too. Well, I'm not sure where it is, so I'm just going to have to do this by memory. And I'm not sure how true this story is. It's more of a legend, but just pretend that it's true. It's just going to demonstrate what I'm saying. Okay, so there are 4 men trapped in a mine, and they estimate how much air they have. how much oxygen they have. So they think that they're going to have 3 days of oxygen. Well, only one of the men has a watch. So he offers to be the timekeep for everyone. Now, when it came time to rescue everyone 5 days later, all of them survived except for one. Who do you think did not survive?
The one that said he wasn't going to survive.
It was the one with the watch. Why do you think?
Running on pure numbers.
The guy with the watch lied to the others and he doubled the time. So if an hour passed, he said that only 30 minutes had passed and so on. So at the end of the third day, he passed away. He perished. And then, somebody else must have looked at his watch. But because they believed that it was, a few days prior, they survived for another couple days. But of course, the timekeep, he knew the real time. So he didn't survive because he believed very strongly that they only had 3 days worth of oxygen. And I'm not sure if anybody has seen the movie The Matrix, but in The Matrix, when Neo when anybody goes into the Matrix and they perish, what happens to them in real life on the ship?
I don't remember.
I'm not sure who the big guy is. I have to think. There's Neo. Sorry, what was that?
Think.
Yeah. Anyway, he says that when you die in the Matrix, you die for real on the Nebuchadnezzar ship because you can't live, the body cannot live without the mind, he says.
I'm sorry, you mean Morpheus.
Morpheus, thank you so much. Yes, Morpheus. And then there's also the story of, and this is more of a legend as well. Snopes says so. Snopes says that it's a legend. It's not necessarily true because we can't verify it. But there was a man who was on a train, and he was a train worker. He worked on a train, and he got trapped while the train was moving in a refrigeration car. And he couldn't get out, and he was very fearful because it was like a freezer unit, and he strongly believed that he was trapped and he was going to get frozen to death. Well, it turns out that the refrigeration unit was not on. It wasn't cold in there, but he strongly believed that it was very cold, and they found him and he had died in that car. And it just goes to show, again, the power of the mind, the placebo effect. Now, I want to direct your attention to the notes that I put in there. They were from Earl Nightingale. So there's The Strangest Secret, which I strongly recommend. It's really quick. It's just over 30 minutes. It's like 34 minutes or something. And then there's another one where he talks about the same saying that I said earlier, which is whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So Earl Nightingale is taking a lesson from Napoleon Hill. This is really fun to listen to because of just the different take on life. It's like a slower paced kind of thing, because I believe this was from the 50s. So his attitude is really kind of cute. And it's a really good listen. It's quick as well. Earl Nightingale says in The Strangest Secret that success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal. And we talked about how when you do your mind movie and you're doing a movie of an event that proves that you got your heart's desire, that will happen to you. So make sure you give it as much detail as you can. I did this once about winning the lottery. And I imagined exactly where I would go. I imagined the store, and I imagined the counter really carefully. And I imagined him saying, "You have a winning ticket." And I imagined a whole bunch of other stuff too, like where I would park and all of that. So it's quite detailed. But I missed the most important part. And what do you think that was?
Buying the ticket.
I missed how much I would win. I won $2. But everything was down to a science. It was exact compared to how I imagined it in my mind movie. So when Earl Nightingale says success is a progressive realization of a worthwhile goal, make sure that your goal is worthwhile, and also make sure that you include the amount of money that you're going to get. So if you write yourself a check like Jim Carrey, okay, write yourself a really good check. Don't give yourself a $2 check. Okay, so I said that this is going to be short tonight. That's everything, unless anybody has any questions.
All right. That looks good for this evening. I'll go ahead and stop.